Hey everybody, Jeff from Pisces Pet Emporium here, and today we are doing part 2 of our Paludarium build, complete with waterfall and spray foam backdrop. In yesterday's video, if you missed it, part 1 of the series, the video link will be in the description. We opened up our Paludarium kit, gave the tank a good clean, got all of our cork bark silicone to the backdrop, got our water pump fit, and we spray foamed our backdrop. And it is now the next morning. We let our spray foam dry overnight. It is now hard as a rock, so we are now ready to continue with our Paludarium build. So here's our tank from yesterday. It dried overnight. The spray foam is almost rock hard, which is an indication that we are now ready to start carving. Carving the spray foam is a very easy process. It's just a little bit time consuming. Getting into every little nook and cranny can take some time. Alright, so as you can see, I have a series of different blades. I have a small razor blade to get into the tight spots. I have a bigger serrated blade and a medium razor blade. And all we're going to be doing to this entire tank is carving the surface of the spray foam. And that's pretty much all we're going to be doing here. I'm going to get started. We're only doing the top part. We're not going to cut the water side. We're going to leave that smooth. And we're going to cut the top where we want our silicone and substrate backdrop to go. So let's get started here. As you can see, I'm just moving the tank around and moving myself so I can get into every little nook and cranny that I can. If you can't get into all the spaces, that's totally okay. The silicone's going to cover it up. We're just trying to break up that bubble look. A bubble is not a natural shape you're going to find in the wild. So we kind of want to make it look a little more choppy and edgy like rock. And the more you're able to expose the porous underside to the spray foam, the better your silicone is going to stick. Alright guys, so I just finished carving. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I'll get you to take a peek here. Alright, so now that I'm happy with my carving, I'm going to do a quick cleanup and then we'll regroup and we'll start our silicone backdrop. And as you can see, the excess spray foam that bubbled over in our first part of the video, that has been cut off and the lid will now fit snugly. So once you're happy with your carve job and you have most of the smooth surface removed, it's time to move on to the silicone backdrop. After all the carving is done, adding a thick layer of black silicone followed by dumping a substrate mix onto that and mixing together is what's really going to pull your terrarium together and give it that natural look. Because we used the Paludarium kit, we got included a brick of Zoom Ed Eco Earth. If you don't have the Paludarium kit or you're working on any other type of terrarium, you can just get any kind of reptile soil. So what I did is I went to the back of the reptile room, I whipped it up together. All you got to do is dump the brick into a bucket with some hot water and stir. And what I did is I added that some Zoom Ed forest floor, and that created this here. So if you can see here, this is a nice blend of the Eco Earth and the forest floor. And included in the kit also is some Zoom Ed SPHAGNUM moss. And what we're going to do now is add that to this, and that's going to be our blend for the Paludarium backdrop. All right, so here's our blend of Eco Earth and Zoom Ed forest floor. And here is the sphagnum moss that came with the kit. So what we're going to do is simply grab some sphagnum moss and toss it in there. As you can see, we have our natural backdrop rub ready to go, so now it's time to start siliconing. We are now ready to start our silicone rub. The fumes from this can be very strong, so I would recommend doing this outside if you can. If you can't do it outside, open all the windows you can in your house, wear a mask, wear some gloves, and we're ready to get started here. We're going to be dumping at least an entire bottle of silicone onto this bad boy, so the fumes are going to be a little bit strong. After it's rubbed in and all the porous areas covered, we're going to dump our natural backdrop rub onto that, smear it in, and let it dry. Now I didn't mention this in the last video, but if you've never siliconed anything before, when you cut your tip, do not cut the threading off. If you cut the threading off, you will not be able to get the head on. So without further delay, let's get started. We just covered the entirety of our tank, used up most of the bottle, so now it's time to rub the silicone in. Make sure to have your substrate handy right beside you. It's going to go right in afterwards. As you can see, I did nick the glass Don't try to remove it. If you smudge it, it'll just be even harder to get off. When that dries, it'll pop right off with the razor blade. So we're just gonna leave that. So I'm happy with that. Like, it looks like most of the tank's completely covered in silicone. So we're gonna take our mixture here and we're gonna dump it over everything. And then now pat. Pat it down. Pat it down. So as you can see, our tank is now fully submerged in our natural backdrop rub. So we have our rub over the backdrop. It looks really good. I'm really happy with how that turned out. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna let it dry for about 3 to 4 hours, and then we're gonna stand it upright and we're gonna take a look at our results. So, alrighty guys, so it's been about 3 hours since I last saw you. I came down and I checked my silicone. It is dry. So now it's time for the moment of truth where we flip the tank vertically and see what we got. It's looking really good, so I'm just gonna take my hand, I'm gonna brush off some of that excess dirt. Alright guys, so now that my tank is looking just how I want it to, I'm going to go through with a razor blade and just clean up some of the edges and the areas where the silicone touched the glass where I didn't quite want it to. Alright guys, as you can see, I have all the edges nice and crisp. May not look like much now, but once we add the foliage and all the green moss, it's gonna really come alive. So the last thing I'm gonna do for today is simply clean up all that excess dirt and moss that's fallen into the bottom. So that's going to wrap it up for today, guys. We're going to let this sit overnight and fully dry. Tomorrow we're going to clean it up a little bit more and we're going to test our waterfall and do some decorating and add our foliage. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure to check out the next video. And if you missed part 1, make sure to check part 1. Both video links will be in the description below. Thanks for joining.